We were engaged in an active peaceful protest because our college is complicit in the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and we need to keep all eyes on this ongoing atrocity that is happening. And so ultimately what happens to Kevin and I doesn't matter in comparison to everything that is happening to our peers in Gaza, and we want to center and keep attention on that. We'll keep protesting until we get divestment and until our college recognizes their complicity in the ongoing genocide in Gaza and actually takes steps to address the harm that they've done.
The significance was sort of touched on by the state, actually. They were talking about how this has sort of become like a national thing where like colleges have no choice but to arrest students who are protesting on their campuses. But what's important in this case is that Dartmouth was the first college nationally to arrest students for protesting the genocide in Palestine.
We were arrested at an encampment on October 28th. We've since had another encampment on our college campus where 90 students were arrested. And so we're seeing that this increase in police brutality and the introduction of police violence to our campuses is something that is just escalating on the part of our universities. We've seen our peers across the country also face similar, conflicts with the police and prosecution. And so I think us just being several months out from our arrest, we're kind of seeing the natural progression of the arguments that are being used against us as protesters and the violation of our freedom of speech.
It's pretty dystopian. Yeah, I mean, at other peer universities, we've had students who were suspended or expelled in order to trespass them to subvert the contractual agreement of the student handbook. We've had students who were shot at with rubber bullets, who were tear gassed. At Dartmouth, we had at the second encampment, we had SWAT teams present, armored vehicles. We're very thankful that those situations did not get violent. But at other universities, we're starting to see that when police are involved, there is a lot of there is violence and there's serious physical harm that is enacted against students, and it's very concerning to see the student voice being silenced politically.
Yeah, I would say to add to that, the movement for Palestine on our college campuses across the country has largely been led by the most marginalized members of our community. International students often have the deepest ties to Gaza and have been, at the forefront of this movement. Once you introduce police to our college campuses, this puts people of color on our campuses, international students, and undocumented students at the most risk. We've brought this up repeatedly to our college administrators, and they've been dismissive. They have not provided any, special protections for students of those backgrounds. We saw on May 1st, it did get violent on our campus. Someone's shoulder was broken. Police were very brutal with even our professors. And, there were no protections for international students in the crowd. While we were there, we were running around I remember at one point I grabbed one of my friends who's an international student and pulled her backward, even though she wasn't at the encampment or in the circle, because the police were arresting people just randomly. And that's something that's really deeply concerning to us, especially given that Dartmouth College is not a sanctuary campus and students here are at risk, especially undocumented students. Arrest isn't something that you just get over. What I'm really deeply concerned about is, beyond just the two of us, we have 90 other members of our community who have been arrested. And there are just simply not enough mental health resources to support everyone. And so I've been doing a lot of crisis care to support people, but people were really traumatized by the police on May 1st, and I think students across the country are really traumatized by the way our universities have inflicted such brutality on us for simply expressing our freedom of speech, which is something that they, in pamphlets and promotional material encourage us to do. We know decades from now, universities like to brag about their, rich history of campus organizing. But that experience with police brutality and dealing with the police and arrest and this continuous process, it's not something that we just wake up one day and forget about.
Yeah, I'd say that the violence that me and Roan faced, as well as the violence that was enacted against our peers on May 1st, is insignificant when compared to the violence against Palestinians.
Yes.
Something I always think about is when people were getting zip tied and thrown into police vans, that's the same that's the same state that they're finding Palestinian bodies in like these mass graves with their hands zip tied. And that's just something I always think about. The sacrifices that we're making here are nothing compared to the genocide.
There's organizations popping up across the country. If you're in the Upper Valley, there's Upper Valley for Palestine. If you're on your college campus, join a PSC chapter, Students for Justice in Palestine, Jewish Voices for Peace. There are so many organizations that are looking for new people. I also think something that, as a union organizer, I'm particularly interested in is the role that we have as workers in supporting the United States as the labor pool. And so talk to your union about the potential for getting divestment clauses into your contract or using your leverage as workers to really advocate for fellow workers in Palestine.